Once upon a time, in a cozy little town filled with friendly faces, lived a kind man named Tom. Tom couldn't see, but he wasn't alone. He had a very special friend named Gus. Gus wasn't just any friend, he was a golden retriever, a furry bundle of joy, and Tom's guide dog. They were the best of friends, always together, exploring the world one step at a time. Tom trusted Gus with all his heart. Gus would lead Tom safely across streets, around obstacles, and through crowded places. They understood each other perfectly. Tom would talk to Gus, sharing his thoughts and feelings, and Gus would listen patiently, wagging his tail and offering gentle nudges of his wet nose. Every morning, Tom and Gus would start their day with a walk in the park. The park was their favorite place. The air smelled like fresh flowers, and the sounds of children laughing filled the air. Tom loved feeling the warm sunshine on his face and hearing the birds sing. And Gus loved sniffing all the interesting smells and greeting other dogs with a friendly sniff and a tail wag. They were a familiar and welcome sight to all the park's regulars. This particular day was extra special. The sun was shining brighter than usual, and a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of blooming roses. Tom and Gus set off on their walk, Tom's hand resting lightly on Gus's harness. "What a beautiful day, Gus," Tom said, a smile spreading across his face. Gus wagged his tail in response, as if agreeing with his best friend. As they walked, Tom imagined all the vibrant colors around them. He pictured the bright green grass, the sparkling blue sky, and the colorful flowers in full bloom. Even though he couldn't see them with his eyes, he could see them in his heart. Gus was his eyes, helping him navigate the world and experience its beauty in a unique way. They passed by the duck pond where children were giggling as they tossed breadcrumbs to the ducks. Gus paused for a moment, his ears perked up, listening to the quacking and splashing. Tom chuckled. "Sounds like they're having a lot of fun, eh, Gus?" he said. Gus gave a happy bark, eager to continue their walk. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere of the park was disrupted by the loud rumble of a motorcycle. A biker, with a scowl on his face and a leather jacket that looked too big for him, sped through the park entrance, ignoring the signs that clearly stated "No motor vehicles allowed." He weaved carelessly between the trees and the benches, revving his engine and making a lot of unnecessary noise. People stopped what they were doing and stared at him with disapproval. Children covered their ears and birds flew away in fright. The biker seemed to enjoy the attention, a smirk playing on his lips. He clearly didn't care about anyone else in the park. Tom and Gus were startled by the sudden noise. Gus tensed up, his ears perked high, sensing the danger. Tom gripped Gus's harness tighter, feeling a sense of unease. He could tell that something wasn't right. The biker was getting closer, and the sound of his motorcycle was growing louder and more menacing. Tom frowned, hoping the biker would pass them by without incident. Tragically, the biker didn't pass them by. In a cruel and heartless act, as he sped past Tom and Gus, he deliberately kicked out his foot and struck Gus in the side. Gus yelped in pain, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the air. Tom stumbled, losing his balance as Gus flinched from the impact. The biker didn't even stop. He just laughed, a harsh and ugly sound, and continued speeding away, leaving Tom and Gus shaken and hurt. The other people in the park gasped in horror, their faces filled with shock and anger. Some of them rushed forward to help Tom and Gus, while others glared at the retreating biker, their fists clenched in fury. Tom knelt down, his hands trembling as he reached out to Gus. "Gus, are you okay?" "What happened?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Gus whimpered softly, licking Tom's hand to reassure him. Tom could feel the pain radiating from Gus's body, and his heart ached with worry and helplessness. He couldn't believe that someone could be so cruel and mean. Tom's world spun. He couldn't see what had happened, but he understood the severity of it from Gus's yelp and the horrified gasps of the people around him. He felt utterly helpless. His protector, his guide, his best friend, had been hurt, and he couldn't even see who did it. What happened? Is Gus okay?" Tom asked, his voice trembling. A kind woman knelt beside him, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "He kicked Gus, Tom. That awful biker kicked your dog. We're so sorry." Tears welled up in Tom's eyes. He felt a surge of anger, but it was quickly replaced by fear and concern for Gus. He ran his hands over Gus's body, gently checking for injuries. Gus whimpered again, and Tom's heart broke. He wished he could take away Gus's pain. He felt so vulnerable without his sight, relying completely on the kindness of strangers to understand what was happening. He desperately wanted to make sure Gus was safe. "We need to get him to a vet," Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. "He needs help." The park erupted with shouts of outrage. People were pointing at the biker who was now trying to leave the park, weaving through the remaining pedestrians. "Stop him," someone yelled. "He kicked that dog." A chorus of angry voices rose, directed at the retreating biker. Some people pulled out their phones, trying to take pictures or videos of him and his motorcycle. Others started running after him, determined to make him stop and face the consequences of his actions. The peaceful atmosphere of the park had completely vanished, replaced by a collective sense of anger and injustice. "He can't get away with this," a man shouted, his face red with fury. "That dog is a hero. He helps that man every single day." The kind woman who was helping Tom spoke into her phone, calling the police and reporting the incident. She gave them a description of the biker and his motorcycle, hoping they could catch him before he disappeared. The community was united in their support for Tom and Gus and their determination to bring the cruel biker to justice. Despite the shouts and the commotion, the biker seemed unfazed. He revved his engine even louder, a defiant grin on his face. He thought he could just bully his way out of the situation. He sped up, narrowly missing a group of children playing near the sidewalk. His arrogance was infuriating. "Ha! You can't catch me," he yelled over the roar of his motorcycle, clearly enjoying the chaos he was causing. He thought he was untouchable, that he could get away with anything. He glanced back at the crowd, a smug look on his face, as if daring them to try and stop him. He truly believed he was above the law and that no one could hold him accountable for his actions. He accelerated towards the park exit, confident that he would escape the consequences of his cruelty. He had no remorse for hurting Gus and no respect for Tom or the community that stood behind them. He was a bully, plain and simple, and he was determined to get away with it. Or so he thought. But as the biker reached the edge of the park, something unexpected happened. The motorcycle sputtered, coughed, and then with a final groan, came to a complete stop. The engine died and the biker found himself stranded right there, in front of everyone he had just scorned. He tried to start the motorcycle again, revving the engine and pumping the gas, but it was no use. The motorcycle remained stubbornly silent, refusing to cooperate. A look of disbelief and frustration washed over the biker's face. He couldn't believe his luck. The crowd, which had been chasing him, began to close in, their expressions a mixture of anger and amusement. They watched as the biker struggled with his unresponsive machine, a sense of satisfaction washing over them. It seemed like karma had finally caught up with him. The biker's escape route was blocked and he was trapped. The tables had turned. The biker, now sweating and flustered, started frantically checking different parts of his motorcycle. He kicked the tires, fiddled with the wires, and even tried rocking the bike back and forth, but nothing seemed to work. The engine remained stubbornly dead. He looked around nervously. Realizing he was completely at the mercy of the crowd he had so carelessly antagonized. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered under his breath, kicking the motorcycle again in frustration. But the motorcycle remained unresponsive, as if it were deliberately mocking him. He was starting to panic. He knew he was in trouble, and he didn't know how to get out of it. The crowd watched his struggles with growing amusement. Some of them started laughing, while others simply shook their heads in disapproval. They knew he deserved everything that was happening to him. He had shown no compassion for Gus, and now he was getting a taste of his own medicine. It was a fitting punishment for his cruel actions. Just when the biker thought things couldn't get any worse, a man stepped forward from the crowd. He was wearing a worn-out t-shirt and had grease smeared on his hands. He looked like he knew his way around engines. "Having some trouble there, friend?" the man asked, his voice calm and steady. The biker eyed him suspiciously. He didn't trust anyone in this crowd, especially not someone who seemed to be offering help. "Mind your own business," the biker grumbled, turning back to his motorcycle. But the man persisted. "I'm a mechanic," he said. "I might be able to help you figure out what's wrong." The biker hesitated. He was desperate and he knew he couldn't fix the motorcycle on his own. But he was also wary of accepting help from someone who clearly disapproved of his actions. Still, he had no other choice. "All right," he said grudgingly. "But don't expect me to thank you." The mechanic simply nodded and started examining the motorcycle. He knew this was going to be interesting. The mechanic worked quickly and efficiently, his experienced hands moving with precision. He checked the battery, the spark plugs, and the fuel line, but everything seemed to be in order. He frowned, sensing something was amiss. Finally, he decided to check the gas tank. He unscrewed the gas cap and peered inside. His eyes widened in surprise. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flashlight, shining it into the tank. What he saw made him gasp. "Well, I'll be," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. He turned to the biker, his expression serious. "You've got sugar in your gas tank," he said. "Someone deliberately sabotaged your motorcycle." The biker's eyes widened in shock. "Sugar? What are you talking about?" he stammered, clearly confused. He couldn't imagine who would do such a thing. But then a realization dawned on his face. He remembered the angry glares, the shouts of outrage, and the people who had been chasing him. It all started to make sense. Someone had gotten their revenge. "Sabotaged," the biker repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. He scanned the crowd, his eyes narrowing as he tried to identify the culprit. He saw several people smirking while others avoided his gaze. He knew someone in the crowd was responsible, but he couldn't prove it. Just then, an elderly woman stepped forward. She had been sitting on a bench nearby, knitting a scarf, when the incident occurred. "I saw you kick that poor dog," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. "And then, when you were trying to leave, I saw someone pour something into your gas tank. I couldn't see what it was, but I knew it wasn't good." Several other people chimed in, confirming the woman's story. They had all witnessed the biker's cruelty and the subsequent act of sabotage. The biker's face turned pale. He knew he was caught. He couldn't deny the evidence any longer. The crowd had seen everything. He was no longer untouchable. He was exposed. The tables had completely turned on him. The biker looked down at his boots, shame creeping into his heart. He knew he had messed up big time. He had hurt an innocent dog, disrespected a blind man, and now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The crowd's anger was palpable, and he knew he deserved it. He looked over at Tom, who was still kneeling beside Gus, comforting him. He saw the pain and worry in Tom's face, and a pang of guilt shot through him. He realized the enormity of what he had done. He hadn't just kicked a dog, he had hurt a loyal companion and a friend. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to. I don't know what came over me." He knew his apology sounded weak and insincere, but it was the best he could do. He was finally starting to understand the impact of his actions. He was finally feeling remorse. The incredible thing was starting to happen. The biker was changing. The crowd, though still wary, saw a glimmer of sincerity in the biker's eyes. They had wanted justice, and now it seemed they were getting it. The biker was not only stranded but also filled with remorse. "We saw you kick that dog," a young man said, stepping forward. "Gus didn't do anything to you. He was just helping his friend." And then, another woman added, "We saw you pour something into his gas tank." The crowd nodded in agreement, confirming the story. They had witnessed the entire incident, from beginning to end. The biker's act of cruelty had sparked a chain of events that had led to his downfall. The biker hung his head low, his face flushed with shame. He knew he couldn't take back what he had done, but he could try to make amends. "I'm so sorry," he repeated, his voice stronger this time. "I was wrong. I should have never done that. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you?" He looked at Tom, his eyes pleading for forgiveness. He knew it would take a lot to earn back the community's trust, but he was willing to try. Immediately, several people rushed to Tom and Gus's side, offering words of comfort and support. "Are you all right, Tom?" one man asked, his voice filled with concern. "Is there anything we can do?" A woman gently examined Gus, checking for any serious injuries. "He seems to be okay, just a little shaken up," she said reassuringly. "But we should still get him checked out by a vet, just to be sure." Another person offered to call a taxi to take Tom and Gus to the animal hospital. The community rallied around them, showing their support and kindness. They brought them water, blankets, and words of encouragement. Tom was overwhelmed by their generosity. He had never felt so loved and supported. Even though he couldn't see their faces, he could feel their warmth and compassion. He knew he was surrounded by good people, people who cared about him and Gus. He smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over him. He wasn't alone. The biker watched the scene unfold, a mix of emotions swirling within him. He saw the genuine care and concern the community had for Tom and Gus, and he felt a deep sense of shame. He realized he had not only hurt a dog but had also violated the values of a community that stood for kindness and compassion. He approached Tom hesitantly. "Tom," he said, his voice sincere, "I am truly sorry for what I did. I know my words can't undo the pain I caused, but I want to make things right. I want to learn from this." He paused, searching for the right words. "I understand that Gus is more than just a dog. He's your partner, your friend, your eyes. I promise to never hurt an animal again. And I want to help others understand the importance of guide dogs and the people who rely on them." He looked at the crowd, his eyes filled with remorse. "I want to be a better person." He meant every word. The mechanic, who had been quietly observing the scene, stepped forward again. "All right, I'll help you clean out that gas tank," he said to the biker. "But only because you're willing to make amends." He looked at the crowd. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we learn from them." The biker nodded gratefully. He knew he didn't deserve the mechanic's help, but he was thankful for it. Together, they worked to drain the gas tank and remove the sugary residue. It was a messy and difficult job, but they persevered. After a while, the motorcycle was finally ready to be started. The biker took a deep breath and turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared to life. He smiled, relief washing over him. He was grateful for the mechanic's help and for the opportunity to make things right. He knew he had a long way to go to earn back the community's trust, but he was determined to try. He had learned a valuable lesson that day. Kindness and compassion were always the right choice. Tom listened intently to the biker's apology and the mechanic's explanation. He couldn't see the biker's face, but he could hear the sincerity in his voice. He knew that everyone deserved a second chance. "I forgive you," Tom said, his voice calm and steady. "But promise me you'll never do anything like that again. Promise me you'll spread kindness and compassion wherever you go." The biker nodded earnestly. "I promise," he said. "I'll do everything I can to make up for my mistake." Tom smiled. "Then I believe you," he said. He reached out his hand and the biker took it, shaking it firmly. It was a moment of forgiveness and understanding. The biker had made a terrible mistake, but he was willing to learn from it and become a better person. That was all that mattered. The community watched, their hearts filled with hope. Maybe, just maybe, something good could come out of this after all. The incredible thing had truly happened. The biker was forgiven. The biker spent the next few weeks volunteering at the local animal shelter. He walked dogs, cleaned cages, and helped with adoption events. He learned a lot about the importance of treating animals with respect and kindness. He even started a campaign to raise awareness about guide dogs and the challenges faced by people with disabilities. He visited Tom and Gus regularly, bringing them treats and spending time with them in the park. He learned how to guide Tom safely across the street and how to communicate effectively with Gus. He became a true friend to both of them. The community was amazed by the biker's transformation. They saw that he was truly committed to changing his ways and making a positive impact. They welcomed him back with open arms, giving him a second chance to prove himself. The biker had learned a valuable lesson about the power of kindness and compassion. He was no longer the grumpy, arrogant biker who had stormed through the park that day. He was a changed man. The biker, now a changed man, left the park that day with a new sense of purpose. He continued to spread his message of kindness and compassion throughout the community. He spoke at schools, churches, and community centers, sharing his story and inspiring others to be more understanding and accepting. He organized fundraisers to support guide dog organizations and animal shelters. He became a role model for others who had made mistakes in their lives, showing them that it was possible to change and make a positive impact. Tom and Gus continued their daily walks in the park, their bond stronger than ever. They often ran into the biker, who would greet them with a warm smile and a friendly hug. The three of them had become unlikely friends, bound together by a shared experience and a commitment to making the world a better place. And so, the story of the biker who kicked a guide dog became a story of forgiveness, redemption, and the incredible power of the human spirit. It proved that even the grumpiest of hearts can be changed with a little kindness. After the biker left, Tom knelt down and gave Gus a big hug. "You're a good boy, Gus," he said, his voice filled with love. "You're the best friend a person could ask for." Gus wagged his tail and licked Tom's face as if to say, "I'm just happy to be here with you." They stood up and continued their walk in the park, their steps lighter and their hearts filled with joy. The sun seemed to shine even brighter and the birds sang even louder. The world felt like a better place. They passed by the duck pond, where the children were still laughing and throwing breadcrumbs to the ducks. Gus paused for a moment, his ears perked up, listening to the cheerful sounds. Tom smiled. "See, Gus," he said, "even after everything that happened, there's still so much good in the world." Gus barked in agreement, eager to continue their walk. They knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. Their bond was unbreakable. The community, inspired by Tom's forgiveness and the biker's transformation, decided to take action. They organized a park cleanup day, inviting everyone to come together and make their beloved park even more beautiful. They planted new flowers, painted the benches, and removed any trash that had accumulated. They also created a series of workshops and seminars to educate people about guide dogs, disability awareness, and the importance of treating all living beings with respect. They wanted to ensure that what happened to Tom and Gus never happened again. They even started a kindness campaign, encouraging people to perform random acts of kindness every day, no matter how small. They believed that even the simplest act of kindness could make a big difference in someone's life. The park, once a scene of cruelty and anger, had become a symbol of hope, forgiveness, and the power of community. It was a place where everyone felt welcome, safe, and loved. The incredible thing had spread. And so, Tom and Gus continued to walk through their beloved park, not just as friends, but as symbols of hope and resilience. Their story became a reminder that even in the face of cruelty and anger, kindness and forgiveness can prevail. They inspired countless others to open their hearts and embrace the power of compassion. The park, once just a place for recreation, became a sanctuary of understanding and acceptance. People from all walks of life came to visit, drawn by the story of Tom, Gus, and the biker who had learned to love. They walked the paths, sat on the benches, and breathed in the air of hope, knowing that even the most broken hearts can be healed. And every day, as the sun set over the park, Tom and Gus would pause for a moment, remembering the incredible thing that had happened there. They knew that their story would continue to inspire others for years to come, spreading the message of kindness, compassion, and the unwavering power of love. The end.